right. I'm Cassidy Phillips, and I am the Director of Client Solutions, Customer Solutions, Solutions Architecture, whatever I call it today, at Switch.io. So I mostly do system design for broadcast and live production systems. I've been up here before talking about efficiency and sustainability in technology, mostly comparisons between IP video and SDI video. But I wanted to take things in a different direction today, and I wanted to talk about career sustainability. So I have kind of a diverse panel here. So, Philip, give a quick introduction of yourself.
Is this on? Hi, my name is Philip Halprin. I am a film and television writer. I've been a screenwriter for about 24 years, and I've been working pretty consistently. So I guess I'm what you would call a middle-class writer. I don't have any hit movies. I don't have any TV shows that have been something you've heard of. My biggest credit, I was a writer on Snow Dogs with Cuba Gooding.
That's a hit.
Which was a lot of fun, but that was a long time ago. But I have been working consistently, and that is it.
Sandra?
Hi, good morning, everyone. How's everybody doing? Good, okay. My name is Sandra Lord. I am the founder of Creative Career Strategies, Creative Career and Business Strategies. I'm also the founder of the Hollywood Networking Breakfast. And my primary thing is strategy and networking. I grew up in the business as a performer and went into managing. I managed talent, actors, writers, producers, directors, and then segued into doing strategy for various people I've worked with, Academy Award-winning and nominated talent, as well as Emmy. I mean, name it, top people in the business, as well as emerging talent. And the strategies that I deal with, transcend all industries and all levels.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think this is a great event and a great example of a time when you can be around a lot of other AV nerds, right? TV people, media people of all kinds, whether we're creatives or we're system designers or we write standards or code. We all love media, and everybody here, even if we've never met each other, we have a lot in common. I think there's a great opportunity to just meet new people and learn about things you never had even thought about, whether it's in a presentation here or in a casual conversation outside these rooms. For myself, I want to talk a little bit about how we all got here, just because I think it's relevant. Sandra, you talked about where you come from and how you ended up on your side. But for me, I like to mention that I didn't even know my job was a possibility or something that existed, even 20 years ago. And it's just something I naturally went into, from being a cable grip at college football games to being a cameraman in newsrooms. And it's just one thing led to another, and I kept getting interested in things I would see, or someone would say, hey, you might be interested in this or be good at this job. And I would say yes, and I would try it. It's gone all the way from, I used to play reruns of TV shows off of 1-inch reel-to-reel out to the world over television, over an old school transmitter, to now I actually help people do broadcasting through the cloud and live production in the cloud even. One of the things there is technology rapidly changing everything about how we can do things, how we can create media, and how it gets distributed. That forces the humans involved to do things differently or think differently about how we make media. So, Philip, I really like your story in that context. Talk about what you went to college for.
So when I was looking at the SMPTE panel, I noticed a lot of speakers here were people who had gone to or taught at RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology. And that's actually where I originally went to college. So I'm tech friendly. So I started at RIT. I wanted to be a photographer, and I studied photography there. And when I did it, they had this really intense course called the Materials and Processes of Photography, which everyone called M&P. And so I spent a whole year studying photochemistry and sensitometry, which was the study of light-sensitive materials and optics and everything that is completely obsolete and useless today. But gave me sort of an approach of how to sort of how do you look at something scientifically and think about variables of, how do you solve a problem? And so I realized after a couple of years at RIT that I did not want to be a professional photographer, and I was really excited about movies. So I transferred. I went to NYU Film School in the 80s, and one of the skills that I had at that point was that I knew how to expose film from being at RIT. So suddenly everybody wanted me to shoot their movie and do all this cinematography stuff. So I was able to kind of use my technical skill to get something going then. And then I kind of used it stuck with the tech stuff for a little while. So when I graduated at NYU, my first job was working for JCPenney's in their world corporate headquarters in Midtown Manhattan. And at the time, they were the largest producer of corporate communications in the United States. And I worked in their slide department. So we'd do these slideshows with like 20 projectors, and they had this thing called a Dove, which you would program them. And it was a wonderful medium. I really enjoyed it. And of course, it's obsolete. And then from that, I was able to get into doing a video for JCPenney's because they started doing direct broadcast. So every single day in the 80s, they had live broadcast television where the buyers at Penney's in New York would broadcast to every JCPenney's department store all over the country to let them know what was coming for the fall season. So we would do live TV broadcast every single day, and I was a cameraman, and we would, I was a videotape operator, and, so I started doing all this technical stuff. And that led to me working in production. So I became a production manager, for corporate videos. And then I moved out here to go to graduate school because I wanted to be a, movie director, of course, like everyone else. And, because I had some production management experience, I started working in music videos out here as a production manager. And by doing that, I got to direct some of these small music projects, which was also a lot of fun. And then at a certain point, I realized that writing was my thing, and I didn't want to go and, I'm going to go make a short film and spend money I don't have and then try to, get a feature going. And I was just like, it's not going to happen for me. So writing was something that I felt like I could do. And that's kind of how I got into it. And then I was unemployed as a writer for about 7 years. And then I have a writing partner, and we got a manager, and we got an agent, and we started working. And then I've been working ever since.
And you also teach, and we'll come
teach
back to that
as well.
Yeah. I think, that's really, important. And again, talking about the 1-inch machines and reel to reels, the things that no one really does anymore, were the things that taught me how television worked and how media worked, and, where your insert edit was on a tape. It's something like, who knows what that is anymore. And I wanted to, as part of my role at SMPTE, as a manager and as a governor at different points, I really like to cast a wide net and just invite anybody who's interested in media at all to come to these types of events and talk to people. Because I never would have known, Philip, even knowing you in a few years, I never knew you had the technical background that you do. I just, he's the guy that wrote Snow Dogs and and then other things. We kind of label just as humans.
It doesn't come up much.
Yeah.
I can tell you the chemical reaction of how light hits film and what happens. But,
yeah, exactly. And we here at these types of events, we talk about that quite a bit. And what's funny is there's things, again, that someone who thinks they maybe want to be a writer or a video editor, they'll come to a SMPTE summit and they'll hear from you and maybe be inspired to go in a whole different direction. And that's just, it's life. That's how these careers are. And then even if you think you're going to be in one role forever, the industry will change and the mediums will change. So, a big part of my early designs was this just dates when I came in a few years ago into system design, was SMPTE 2110, which I am a strong believer in. And for the record, it is more efficient than SDI by quite a bit if you properly design your system. And we can all talk about that another time. But like HDR, on the creative side, HDR had made a huge difference. Video resolution upgrades and the different color spaces we could get into changed what directors could do, what cinematographers could do, and maybe even how you might write something because you're thinking about how those colors are going to look at the end. So this is all one holistic environment. One thing that I want to branch into is, again, you teach, and I think for me, I've been in manager roles. It's almost a bad word for the last couple of years. And I really like to think of those roles as more like a mentor-mentee relationship. That's what helped me move through my career. And I was always more willing to learn and more interested in my job if I felt like I was being mentored. And so that's something that, it's about sharing the knowledge, even if maybe you didn't always have the mentors you wanted coming up, trying to be those mentors or that mentor, right? So I want to talk just about putting different people together and accessibility to things, which, by the way, the cloud and the way technology is going makes it so that everybody everywhere with an internet connection can be a part of this. Obviously, we see that with social media. Everyone's a part of media now. We're all content creators. Sandra, talk about what you do with your events and how you've structured those to try to encourage people to meet new people.
Yeah, I think networking is the key, because sometimes people have, you may be at a job and you have, you feel you have security, or you may be on a show or doing a movie, and a lot of people don't plan for what happens if this suddenly goes away. And building your network is really, really, really important. You're only as powerful and as employable as your network. And it actually, when you develop a network, you actually potentially have access to the networks of the people in your network. So I think networking and strategy, these are two things that are not really consciously on people's radars. They just think of getting the job and doing the job, but they're not thinking of planning or leveraging. And leveraging is through your contact. And through your contacts, you get employment, and you can leverage that as well. At my events, I have, there's always a networking component. I'm the founder of the Hollywood Breakfast, and I started that several years ago at Paramount Studios, and it has evolved into just a major access to television, to entertainment power players. So I also have Women Helping Women and the Los Angeles Film and Television Meetup. And when I do with Creative Career Strategies, I put the two together. And for me, when people come to me and they say, networking, I hate that. I can't stand it. It's about using people. I'm like, no, it's not. Networking is building a relationship. That's what it is. It's having a conversation. And most people who say they don't like it is because they're not good at it. But I have never met anyone who came to me who didn't like networking, who isn't now a networking guru. Because once you understand it, it's like, wow, where can I go? Who can I meet? And again, you're as powerful and as employable as your network. So that is something I really push. And with the strategy, you have to have a strategy for networking. You have to have a strategy for your career. As some of you know, not only setting goals and meeting them, but moving strategically, because there are people just like you who may be better than you, who may be not as good as you, but they're all competing for the same opportunities. And what makes you stand out? So it's knowing what you bring to the table, and not only knowing what you bring to the table, but owning what you bring to the table. So many people are insecure and, I don't know, but this is a business. I always joke that this is a business about your accomplishments. I mean, look at all the award shows we have, right? It's about you're acknowledging your accomplishments. So when you tell me, it's, I feel like I'm boasting. I feel like, I'm tooting my own horn. Who else is going to do it for you? There's a fine line between confidence and arrogance, right? But if you understand what you bring to the table and how to present your credentials, it's not boasting, especially when you can deliver on what you say. So don't look at it as, the things that we label, the things that we say, like, I'm shy, I'm insecure, when you say things like that, you sink to that level of behavior. But look at how your behavior changes when you say, I'm confident, I'm this. I know what I bring to the table. You teach people to see the way you want to be seen and not have them get the opportunity to define you. So a lot of that stuff comes into the two are integrated, networking and strategy. And I think a lot of tech people, a lot of people in the industry don't think about stuff. They throw things at the wall and hope something sticks, but then they cannot duplicate it the next time or sustain it.
Or it's like the next immediate step rather than years in the future.
Yeah.
That's something when I design a system, I have to think about 5 to 10 years of use at least. Mm-hmm. And I think with professional relationships, I try to, and I'm not always great at it, and we'll talk about that, but I try to think of a 20-year window. I try to think of building a relationship where someone's still going to want to talk to me about a solution 20 years from now. Because that's the other part. You think about it from the sales side of my job is I not only need to satisfy their need, but I want them to actually call me for a new system when it comes time for that. One of the things that you do at your events, I really liked the way you handle the seating arrangements. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Oh yeah, because I don't discount anyone. I always tell people, if you come to my events, don't discount anyone. Because sometimes people just have a bad time. They don't know how to properly introduce themselves. So they may have a bad introduction. And so I always say, see, if you get 15 seconds or 30 seconds to introduce yourself somewhere, you need to be, you can gauge how well you did by who's coming to you afterwards. If you go into people, that means something is a little off with your introduction. If it was great, everybody would be coming to you. Oh, I want to see what about the woman who was in the purple jacket or the guy who had the beret? That's people will want to find you. So I'm very strategic in the seating. Like I will spend all night looking at who's a director, who's a producer, who's in finance, who's in casting, and I put them at the same table. And I remember I had a big event one time with heads of studios. It was for a Women Helping Women event. And I remember a couple of my workers didn't understand why we were there till 4 a.m, looking at this board and doing the seating. And it was very strategic because I had 12 powerful women. We had about 200 attendees. And I'm thinking these are people who want a break. I believe in helping people get to the next level because everybody has a dream. And so what I did was at this event, I had each of the 12 power players sit at a table with a director, a writer, a producer. And they were like, what, we are not sitting together? I'm like, no. It's about women helping women. And they were not too happy at first, but then afterwards they thanked me because they were able to have some meaningful dialogue with people around the table. And now I notice a lot of people are doing that. But at the time it was it was a novel idea.
Yeah. I really like that because obviously we kind of build our professional networks as we go along, and there's people that I call and talk to, sort of just about the business probably once a week. Mm-hmm. And my instinct might be as a human to sit with them if we're at an event like this.
Yeah.
But really I have to force myself out of that comfort zone and sit down with people, which is what happened with me. Someone found me and lifted me up at different points, mm-hmm. So I have to kind of pay that back. I do want to go deeper into teaching and the approach to that, but I also want to do something up here that I've not really seen anyone do. I want to talk about failure and times where you might have messed up professionally in your relationships. And I'll start, for me, I grew up really into martial arts and I spent a lot of time in boxing gyms. And I was very abrupt and frankly rude with people for a long time. And I still have some of that. It was really good for live production. It was good for physically pulling talent out of dressing rooms and putting them on a set before the show went live. Not so good as a bedside manner. So that's something that my entire career I've been trying to soften my edges so that I can communicate with people in a way that's effective, outside of the, hey, we need to do this in 30 seconds kind of an attitude that I had for the first 10 years or so. Philip, is there an example, an elevator, version of the story that you could give us?
I think for me, a lot of it was just sort of getting over myself. And I came out here in 1988 to go to graduate school at USC Film School, and I was a little older than everybody else. I was about 24, and my peers were about 21. And
feels like a huge gap.
Yeah, it felt like a huge gap back then. And I took this class where everybody made their 8-minute silent film, and I made mine. And I had booked a ski vacation immediately after the class had ended. So I missed the screening where my film screened because I was in Colorado skiing because, who cares about my film screening? And of course, that was the screening where everybody decided they were looking for crew positions for the next semester, what they call the 480, which is the 20-minute sync sound film. So I didn't get a good crew position because nobody knew me because I wasn't there. And, that was like, duh, show up. You're here. It's, you're not more important than the thing you're doing.
You mean you couldn't show them pictures of your ski trip and on the movie?
Well, you saw my film, you know what I can do, and I'm older than you. And it's like, and that also was a thing when I was 24 and I'm interviewing for a job, basically a crew position for someone who's 21. They're intimidated because I'm 24 and I had a little production experience and I was from New York and whatever. And it was like, well, that was one of those things where it's like I self-sabotaged. So I would say work hard, get out of your own way. Don't self-sabotage.
The empty cup, be open to new things.
Yeah. And, now, like, for instance, I'm 60 years old now. When I first started in this business, when I first started as a writer, I was probably about 27. And, when my writing partner and I would first go into the studios, everybody who could hire us was 10 years older than we are. Oh no, we've got a meeting with the president of, Universal, and they'd be some 37-year-old person, and they're older. Now I'm older than their parents. I go in there and it's like, well, nobody wants to go and says, hey, I just hired these 2 old guys. I'm really excited about it. So that's a challenge, how do you keep relevant in a cult, because it's not just the technology is changing, but the culture is changing and the marketplace changes. So that's one of those things where it's like, well, how do you stay relevant? And I feel like one of my career things was I'm always chasing this outdated cultural model, right? I wanted to be a photographer because I was trying to live out my Richard Avedon fantasy. And it's like, well, photography in 1990 was not as sexy as photography was in 1969. And it's like, well, cinema being the high art of, the 1990s is not cinema today, so, movies that I was very, very excited about just aren't getting made anymore. So it's like, well, how do I keep my career going? Because I'm not going to get hired to write the next Avengers movie. So what do you do? And that's, the marketplace is always changing. And the kids I teach right now are more interested in TikTok than they are in feature films. So it's just, again, it's a different world. And
4-second clips. We thought that music video editing was wild, right? But now it's all 4 seconds, 3 seconds. Yeah. Sandra, your example, if you don't mind, of failure. I think there's a good lesson in there.
Yeah. I will take your phrase, strategic mistake, not necessarily failure. Some years ago, I had an opportunity to meet with a really big producer in town. And when I went to the meeting, he brought the president of his company. We met on one of the studio lots. And I was really excited about the meeting, but I went there because I wanted to ask him, among other things, to be on the advisory board of one of my nonprofits. But we got to talking about the business and writing, and he was the toast of the town at the time as a showrunner, amazing writer. And he said to me, I always tell people, if people like you, they break the rules. And so he broke the rule and said, if you have a script that you're really passionate about, that you really love, send it to me. If I like it, I'll get you the best agent in town. And I didn't have a completed script, so I had no business talking about that stuff. It would have taken me months to get it to where he would have wanted to read it. And that's something I teach right now, Don't go in and pitch. Don't talk to people about stuff unless you can deliver within 24 to 48 hours. Otherwise, you're going to be labeled a flake like everybody else is labeling everybody else in this town. So that was my strategic mistake, and I have never done that since then. And when I go in, I'm prepared and I'm ready to deliver.
Yeah, that's a great lesson. And so, before we run out of time, I think I want to offer just advice. We can all offer some advice, especially when you're in a group like this where maybe there's a bunch of people you don't know. An opportunity to do some social networking and some professional networking. I think for me, my advice is don't be afraid to be the dumbest person in the room, quote unquote, to ask the dumbest question. And I will typically say for anyone here, trust me, I will ask the dumbest questions. So you guys are not going to beat me to that. That's how I learned whatever I do know about, SMPTE 2110 or anything I did in SDI. Otherwise it was always just asking questions and frankly, annoying some of the experts who are actually here. So that's my advice. Philip?
Well, I think so much of this business comes down to I know someone. And, I've spent a lot of time spinning my wheels of trying to, applying to things that are cold, you're throwing job applications out there, and then the phone rings and someone hires you. So I always think of like the job application thing is like it's busy work to make you feel like you're doing something until you get lucky and someone calls you. And every once in a while you might really get lucky and get a job from someone you don't know. But, that's why I'd say networking is very, very important. And you got to make it work for you. So for instance, my writing partner used to go out to the bars here in Hollywood every night. So he was the big drinker and I wasn't. I was like, I would go hiking by myself, which didn't help my career at all. But I was like, wait, I'm not networking while I'm hiking down, So what he would do is he would go out and he had all these people in Hollywood, which is, if you haven't done it, it's a great place to go on a bar crawl. And, he knew all these people because he was going out drinking, and that's how half of our jobs happened, because they were his drinking buddies are all, and then, for what I do, a lot of it's what we call fantasy filmmaking. So everyone delusionally thinks they're making their independent movie, and, 99% of these movies are never real. So, but somehow if you keep doing that, eventually you meet somebody who can help you.
You're trying to make something.
I'm not saying you should all go out drinking in Hollywood, but I'm saying that, what is it that you're interested in doing that's going to make something where you can network as well?
Yep.
So for instance, I was hiking by myself, and then I started hiking with Meetup, and then I met all kinds of people hiking. So how do you, what is it? Because, not everybody wants to go to a formal networking event.
That's perfect. All right. Parting shot, Sandra.
Yeah, but you can network anyway. I network at Costco. I mean, just because it's really having a conversation. And if you're curious, you'll find that your personality comes through. You don't even have to ask anybody for anything. In fact, I always say don't ask people for stuff because everybody else is asking them. Right? So stand out, and just as you're having this conversation, you're going to show that you're nice and, hey, that person's fun to hang out with. Eventually, I guarantee you, that person is going to ask, so what do you do?
Yeah.
Right? Because you're not hitting them up for anything. It's all about having a conversation. There are a couple of things I want to say. Again, own what you, when you're networking, be curious. I could watch paint dry for 4 hours and have a conversation about it because I'm curious. And Philip, you mentioned something about the ageism thing. Don't let people put labels on you. This is a town that likes to put labels on people. And if you walk in to a meeting as old, they will see you as old. I'm not saying that you wear a toupee and you do all that kind of stuff, right? That's not what I'm saying. Your whole attitude. Let your talent speak for you when you walk into that room. Let your talent precede you in that room. Not your age, not anything else, but what you bring to the table.
Yeah, that's perfect. Well, as I sign off, I'll say SMPTE meetings, monthly meetings are typically free for anybody, and they usually have pizza too. So I highly recommend you find one. And thank you, everybody, and feel free to grab us or reach out to us anytime.
Thank you
much.
Right.
Excellent program. Please, a round of applause for our panelists.